Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Institute for Personal Development, where total consciousness is the new frontier. Kriya Yoga is the union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices that initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Well, good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Today on The Voice of Yoga, we will be discussing the holidays and the concept of being holy. What does it mean to be a whole person? The term is called Apotheosis, the process of the human becoming divine. We will talk about why we're disconnected from the divine and how to reconnect to this invisible, intangible life force. So, Swami, the first thing that comes to my mind is the word holidays. So I'm thinking that originally it might have meant holy days, meaning the birth of Christ and so on and so forth. So do you agree with that term? And what's happened to us in this lifetime of the holy days?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, just looking at the word, holiday, holy day, and then, just looking at the terms, what does it mean to be a holy person? And, especially in my opinion anyway, we have this kind of cliche understanding of what it is to be being holy. And, some of the images that I'm associating that with is someone who does what they're told, follows the rules and gets rewarded for their behavior. And, for me, I find that to be very, very passive and uninspiring at best. It's not a very powerful image. And then, of course, we have this concept that being holy is boring, and the sinners have all the fun. That the people that are just embroiled in the physical world are the ones that are having all the fun. And so the way we're socialized and the playing field is really tipped in that favor is to be indulgent in the world. But we don't really have a strong image of what it is to be a whole person.
So I guess we have to learn how to become a whole person. What's the first thing that we have to do? And I know you're probably going to talk about how we should always be trying to reconnect to this life force and becoming an adult and becoming a human in the adult state. So where do we go from here? What's the first thing that we need to do to become whole?
Well, like what we say, we have to recognize that there's something we have to do. That we are drawing from a source of sustenance. We're drawing from an energy field that is limiting. And that was why, the term religion means to relink. Yoga means union or yoking. That, it's kind of like we said in our post for Spiritual Advance, it's an uninstall, reinstall. And actually, it's an uninstall, a download of a upgraded program, and then a reinstall. It's a very specific thing that we have to do. And one of the things that I found that was really helpful were the discoveries from quantum physics. 98% of this universe is invisible. And, we're attached to the visible and the tangible parts of reality. But our potential lies in this invisible, intangible resource. And so in order for us to connect to that, there's some tampering that has to happen. There has to be a departure from instinct, appetite, preservation, and survival. Even say, for example, one of the things, that I always refer to is, points of passage and rites of passage. We don't have them anymore. That age 7 was when you should have separated from your attachment to the tangible. And especially today, when we look and we see that, when they're doing statistical studies with our teenagers, it's really not sex and drugs that's motivating them. It's peer pressure. And peer pressure is an extension of our infantile defense mechanisms. See, as infants, we need mom and dad. Because if you're an infant and somebody out there doesn't like you, you're going to expire. You can't fend for yourself. But if you're in your teens, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and you're still secretly seeking approval in your decision-making, something isn't keeping step. And then, of course, coming back to, the image of the holy person, as being someone who does what they're told, is a far cry from, this person who literally conditions themselves to separate from what is safe, familiar, comfortable, and known, and embarks on the anxiety, the uncertainty of the unknown. Because the whole visible and intangible.
Well, I think that's really the hardest part is to maintain an everyday lifestyle. Because we have to work with groups of people, and we have family members that may or may not be on the same path as yourselves, and I think that's the hardest part is, like you say, to be able to walk that path. And you do kind of feel like you're alone, when you start talking to people about what it is that that you're trying to do. So the thing is how do we go through our everyday lives and still, try to maintain this connection to the life force and yet still live in today's world?
Yeah, it all comes down to the exchange of energy that you have with your external environment. When you separate from competing for energy on a limited level, most of our interaction is what we call control dramas, where we're competing for energy on this very limited level. And your exchange of energy is that you're drawing off of your outside environment. Again, I need external reinforcement. But when you make this internal connection and you have the benefit of internal support, now you're not drawing off of the outside world, but in fact you're able to give back. So in other words, if people don't agree with what you're doing, they don't like what you're doing, and they criticize you and they ridicule you, it doesn't bother you, because you don't need their approval. In fact, you recognize that, misery loves company, that they're threatened by the fact that you are independent, that you are self-reliant, that you have the benefit of internal support, and you have a relationship with something that's pure, it's powerful, it's sacred, and it's not ever going to let you down. So you're dealing from a platform of calmness, confidence, and clarity. And so as a result, that's your optimal position of performance. And it doesn't matter what your external circumstances or situations are. That's the beauty of, I want to say, this program is that when you make this internal connection, then you have the ultimate coping skill. That you can be an individual. And then the other thing that comes with this internal connection is this, what we call an expanded sense of self. That you'll actually rise above instinct, appetite, preservation, and survival, and you're going to have a sense of connectedness to a greater whole. that will spiral into what we call, or evolve into what we call, a sense of purpose, a collective purpose. And that is, what kind of brings about the evolution of our whole feeling state, where initially we're emotional, then eventually we become ambitious and intelligent, but finally we become wise and enthusiastic. And the origins of the word enthusiasm means with theos. You're in tandem with this invisible, intangible source of sustenance. You have the benefit of internal support. You're connected to something that's pure, it's powerful, and it's sacred, and it's not going anywhere.
When you were talking about when we are walking the solitary path, and we know, you're no longer looking for approval from the other people that might be in your life. That just reminded me of we're not looking for this approval from them anymore, in a fear of not being liked or whatever, but instead it almost comes down to where we have a sense of compassion for those people instead of this fear of not being liked from these same people. Is that generally like what happens to people? Is that now you're looking at them like, oh, you poor things, you start feeling compassion for them because they're not on the same wavelength that you are, or on the same path?
Well, that's exactly what we're saying. You know what I mean? And that's what this whole thing of compassion is all about. That you actually recognize that they're in the realms of suffering and decay, that, everybody out there is fighting a hard battle. And everybody out there is doing the very best they can with what they know. See, that's the problem, is that we're trying to fit the square peg in the round hole. We're trying to make, peace on earth a goal in and of itself. And you can't lift yourself off of the earth from the earth. You're going to need some sort of external support. And that's what the whole benefit of religion was. And now, of course, we're approaching our lives without the benefit of this other source of sustenance. Because it's this other source of sustenance that really gives us the power. It's kind of like with computer programs, like if you download like a trial version of something and it doesn't have the full capabilities of, the actual program, you'll have a lot of what they call ghost options. Like you'll turn on a menu and everything will be kind of grayed out. You'll see them, but they're not accessible. And that's how I kind of view humanity today. That we're drawing from a source of sustenance, and we've got all of this potential. And we talk about all of this, these possibilities, but we don't have the program to be able to access these options. And that's a big part of, the way we teach Kriya Yoga. The whole thing of literally teaching people how to connect to something that will make them something different. And not just talk about it, or not just give people a lot of advice, that you could do this and you can do that and you can do this, when in fact they're underpowered and ill-equipped because they don't have the benefit of this connection.
All right, great. Well, we're going to hold that thought right there, Swami. So we're going to hear a word from our sponsors. So listeners, we will be back with you shortly.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate.
If you are looking for a samadhi-based experience, IPD Kriya Yoga has the goods. A complete yoga program that includes the practices and the process. Starting with the separation from mother, including the labors and tasks of the hero and the return as a whole person. Practice makes perfect only when practice is whole. Kriya Yoga is a path of action, knowledge, and devotion. Samadhi, or total consciousness, is experienced by knowing and doing with devotion. Call or click now and get started. 603-929-0303 or www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste.
Purnamariya Purnameva Vashishate.
Welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you are listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. Swami, I have another question to ask you. I was talking to a coworker the other day, and we were discussing the Thanksgiving holiday that just passed, and I asked her, well, how was your holiday? And they were like, well, it wasn't what we kind of expected. Everybody was sick. It wasn't that Norman Rockwell kind of holiday, and they were disappointed that because they believe that their Christmas is going to be the same way. We want the Hollywood version of Christmas and the holidays, and we just don't get it anymore. And they were talking about that. And so what would your response would have been to that particular person, A, about their disappointment, and B, what they're looking for to be the perfect holiday?
Yeah, again, a lot of it comes down to just everything that we're talking about. We're trying to do something in an energy field where it's not possible for us to be whole. That the physical world is in constant change. The physical world is dualistic. And a lot of times we're trying to complete ourselves in this realm. So we're looking for this perfect experience. And it's never going to happen. This is kind of like the depression that an artist goes through. That an artist takes perfect divine vision, puts it into form, and it comes up short. It's never good enough. You're always going to find this hair in the soup. There's always something that's going to let you down. And that's one of the reasons why, when you learn that reality is multidimensional and you learn that the physical world is dualistic, then you never ask it to do something it's not capable of doing. So when we're looking for this sense of the perfect day, Purna means whole. The origins of the word perfect in Sanskrit, was Purna, meaning whole. That you have to really, if you want a perfect day, you have to connect to a resource of energy that can give you that return. So when you align yourself with the invisible, intangible part of reality, that other 98%, then that's the part where you will get a return that will never let you down. But you can't get what you're looking for from the outside world. And that's across the board. Even when it seems like it was the perfect day, one of the things you're going to find is that, it didn't last. On some level it was like just this glimmer, this glimpse, but then now it's changed. And it's all going to be being able to make these types of adjustments. And that's one of the benefits of internal support and one of the perks of having a relationship with this indivisible unified state is that you're able to shape your inner state to fit the demands of the outside world. And again, you're never drawing off of it. So in other words, you don't ever have any expectations of it, other than the fact that it's going to change. But your sense of joy and how you color all of your experiences will come from your relationship with something that's pure, powerful, and sacred, and is unchanging.
So if I was to put that into practical application, so whether you're sitting around, the dinner table during the holidays or whatever, or whether you're sitting around at work and doesn't really matter, I guess, the situation, but if something isn't going to your expectations, you're just saying, just look, take, turn to the left, take a deep breath, and then on that breath, connect yourself to the planet, the cosmos, the universe, because that's really the only thing that matters. Everything else is just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the Buddhist concept of Maya, illusion. It's not that the physical world isn't real. The illusion is that it's separate from this indivisible, unified state. And for the most part, again, we're using the outside world as a source of validation. We're looking for external reinforcement. And it's all the association between a symbol and a feeling. Now, once you have reprogrammed your mind-body complex and you're now using the nothing to produce the feeling that you're happy, it won't negate what's going on in the outside world, but it won't be what you use to produce the feeling that you're happy anymore. See, that's the whole concept in yoga that we call detachment. That you're detached from duality, but in order to be detached from duality, you have to be attached to this indivisible, unified field. That's the whole key. You have to desire something. And when you have your priorities in order, like I'm having a great day, not because, the mashed potatoes came out good, but because the universe loves me. That's, I think, again, that's a different exchange of energy. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. So I guess basically as we're going through the motions this month, gearing up for the big day for Christmas, so, the hustle and the bustle and waiting in the lines and trying to find that perfect gift, that's just really all, third dimensional things that we even shouldn't even be concerned about.
Yeah, again, that's all part of our conditioning. Thanks to the media and Hollywood, and now we have, beer drinking, cigarette smoking, violent, dangerous new images to associate with an individual. And a lot of that comes down to just being able to see through it. That these are not humans in the adult state. They're humans in the larvae state pretending to be doing better than what they really are. That the real spirit of the holidays is this whole thing of celebrating your wholeness. Celebrating a relationship with forces that are unchanging and permanent.
If you
Oops. I hit the wrong button. The commercial was playing. I hit the wrong button.
So I guess we want to talk about, so again, if we're out and about and we're doing all these things preparing for the holidays, so we are, in essence, have to remember every moment of every day that we are so much more than what we think we are. So we want to be able to connect to this life force every moment of every day, not just one day a year or in the preparation for this one day of the year.
Oh, exactly. In fact, that's what the whole thing of apotheosis is. You become this part of yourself that is eternal, that always was and always will be. And that, to me, that's the essence of these holy days, that you feel connected to something that's pure, powerful, and sacred. And, of course, the joy that comes with this connection, the changes that this connection brings within us, the whole thing of the difference between vice and virtue. Interestingly enough, in Alice Bailey's book, she talks about, in her book Labors of Hercules, she talks about the origins of the word vice, which means to render ineffective. That you're drawing from a source of sustenance that is limiting. And the whole thing of virtue, came from the Latin vir, which meant, strength. And so the more I think humanity starts to recognize that none of this is magic and it's not all about conduct, but it's all about a connection. Because being spiritual is not sensual deprivation. It's literally indulgence. That's one of the things that maybe next week we can talk a little bit about the feast. The whole concept of, it's not about indulging yourself in the food of the world. It's indulging yourself in this grace of spirit. And that there's a very big distinction between the two. And that's a big part of, becoming this human in the adult state. It's a big part of this conversion that they talk about in religion. That we can, maybe next week we can talk a little bit about that whole dynamic. Because, you become spirit. You become divine. And it's not just a bit of, like C.S. Lewis would say, obscure, abstract scholasticism, that's useless. But, this concept of becoming divine is and should be a viable human enterprise. It's something that we should be doing that we're just completely removed from. And we've got all of this bad information that we're trying to make sense out of. Because the holy person, to me, has a very completely different meaning than somebody who is just doing what they're told. You know what I mean? It is the person who has achieved adulthood, has mastery over forces that prevent the rest of us from becoming whole. These are people that are individuals with physical prowess, with mental capabilities, and a sense of purpose. That the holy person is kind and virtuous by nature. It's not something that they're trying to do. And the other thing is that they're not doormats. Being spiritual doesn't mean that, you're passive. That you are passionate, you are enthusiastic, but you also know how to protect and defend truth and honor.
Wow, yeah, great show. So I guess we need to start closing down our program. So listeners, don't forget, you can reach us on our website, also all the other social media that's out there, Facebook, Twitter, so on and so forth. So keep your questions and comments coming. And be sure to tune into our program next week. We're going to continue our conversation about the holy days. And so, Swami, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, I would like to invite everybody to join our Spiritual Advance. And maybe, if you're not in the area, you can check out some of our online classes. We're going to start a new Theory 1 class next Wednesday morning at 10:30. So if you're interested, you could sign up online at Powwow. And I would wish everybody a good day. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to our program, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton with Swami Jayananda signing off. Have a Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste.